Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. It's kind of strange, you know. Naruto said, leaning a whisker-marked cheek on the palm of his left hand. It's like everything's different, but so much is still the same. Shikamaru's still so lazy and indifferent, Hinata's just as shy as she used to be, even Kiba's the same. It's like Sakura and me are the only ones who changed. Jiraiya looked up from his bowl of Ichiraku's miso ramen and looked sideways at the blonde. I know, kid. I feel the same way every time I come back to Konoha. Strange, but familiar. I suppose that's what it feels like to come back home. Home? Hey, I guess it is, chuckled Naruto. To think that only 3 years ago Konoha was simply where he lived. He couldn't really call it home back when he was alone, ignored and hated, could he? When did I start thinking about it like that, I wonder? As far as he could see, it probably started when he became a ninja. That day, when Iruka gave him his forehead protector, was when Naruto finally found someone important, someone to care for, to miss, to protect. From then on, Konoha was not only a place of residence for Naruto, it was his home, which he'd protect, even at the cost of his own life. Smiling at the pleasant revelation, Naruto finished the rest of his ramen, and left the stand with the older man. Hey, Naruto, said the white-haired Sannin, as they walked through the streets at nighttime, are you okay staying here? Didn't you want to go with the team that is supposed to meet Sasori of the Red Sands henchmen? Naruto shrugged, yeah, but you know Tsunade Bachan. She wouldn't have let me go no matter what, I'm too emotionally involved. Besides, it's not like Sasuke will be there. I somehow doubt Orochimaru is letting Sasuke move about freely and unchecked. I don't think he'll risk letting anything happen to his new body. He ended with a bitter tone, making clear the fact that he was angry at someone. Still unclear, however, was if that person was Orochimaru, Sasuke, or he himself. Jiraiya noticed the bitterness in the teen's voice, but decided to leave it alone, and change the subject. Anyway, this just means that you'll have a little more time to train for the Chunin exam, right? Naruto's countenance brightened somewhat at that. Yeah, that's right, and this time, I will become Chunin, just wait and see, Arrow Sennin. After a few moments of silent walking, Naruto spoke up. I wonder if tests are the same every year or if they change. Jiraiya smirked. Alright then, I think this is a good situation for us to examine. Ready, go. Naruto smiled. Part of the training he went through with Jiraiya involved these pop quizzes. He was supposed to analyze each option, and then, judging by his knowledge, come to the most likely conclusion. Well, it's logical to keep the same test every year, because if you have the qualities needed to pass a test, that probably won't change, so the only tests that matter are the ones you didn't make it through. This would also explain the clause in that contract we had to sign in the second test that said we couldn't tell anyone below Chunin level about anything that happened during the exam. On the other hand, changing the tests every year means that someone retaking the exam can't rely on prior knowledge of the test, and this accomplishes two things. 1. It puts people retaking the exams on the same level as rookies, and 2. It tests another one of the qualities a Chunin needs, the ability to adapt when the mission doesn't go exactly the way it was planned, or if the intelligence was incorrect. So, I guess it'll have to be a mix between the two, same tests, basically, but different catches. He smiled when he saw the older man nod, then sighed dejectedly and slumped, which makes things that much harder. He then shook his head violently, as if trying to get rid of that specific strain of thought. But it doesn't matter. I'm still going to become Chunin, no matter how hard the test is. Jiraiya mentally chuckled, seeing the boy switching between emotions so quickly. He was truly impressed by Naruto's quick, intelligent response. Naruto had definitely changed. Gone was the short, stupid, annoying brat who was always seeking attention, and in his stead was a true ninja, with all the qualities and skills necessary to become Chunin, Junin, and probably even Hokage, if he worked at it hard enough, which undoubtedly he would. Hell, Even his height increased exponentially. He was only an inch or two shorter than Jiraiya right now, and he was still in his growing phase. Therefore, one question burned in Jiraiya's brain: Naruto, why don't you show the people here that you've changed? Naruto turned around to face Jiraiya as they arrived at a terrace of sorts, overlooking Konoha. The place was deserted. Huh, what do you mean, Ero Sennin? Jiraiya sighed. I know that you've changed since we left Konoha, Naruto, there's no reason or use in denying it. But you still act like the old Naruto whenever you're with anyone else. Kakashi told me that he actually explained to you how to fight people who use long-range attacks. Tsunade told me that you were acting like a brat when she was giving you your mission, and I heard that you acted like an idiot when you were on your date with that Sakura girl. I know I taught you better than that, Naruto, and I just can't figure out why you're pretending to be the same as you were 3 years ago. The blonde let those words hang in the air for a minute, before he spoke. I'm just scared, I guess, that they won't like the new me. It's easier to be the same idiot brat that I used to be, rather than actually show them who I am now. A few seconds later he sensed a blow coming towards his head, so he swerved out of its way and opened up some distance between him and Jiraiya. What the hell was that for? Don't you get it, Naruto? Jiraiya all but yelled. The Naruto you used to be couldn't become Chunin, much less Hokage. If you want people to acknowledge your abilities, you can't stay like that. He walked up to the younger ninja and placed his hand on his shoulder. You have what it takes to become Hokage one day, Naruto, but not like this. I know you, and I know that the real you, the new you, is loads better than the you're pretending to be. Don't be afraid of them, kid, and show them just how incredible you are. Naruto grunted. You make it sound so easy. Because it is, Baka, said Jiraiya. Just let the real Naruto out, and everything will be okay. Naruto nodded and said goodbye to the older man. After that, he went to the motel he was staying at since his old apartment got rented out to someone else. I'm gonna have to talk to Tsunade Bachan about getting me somewhere to live. He quickly fell asleep following that thought. Sakura woke up from the sound of soft tapping on her window. She got up from her bed and walked over groggily to check it out. When she opened the window, she found a note taped to the windowsill, which read, Hey, Sakura-chan, I'm sorry if I woke you up. Come meet me back at our old team's training ground, today at 2 o'clock. Bring some food with you, if you don't mind. Looking forward to it, Uzumaki Naruto. Sakura couldn't help but laugh. Well, at least he wasn't noisy. She looked at her alarm clock. 9 o'clock, more than enough time. She took a quick shower, got dressed, and then went downstairs. On the table was a note from her parents, saying that they were off for their 15th anniversary, and that they would be gone for 2 weeks. Oh, geez, I totally forgot about that. As much as she hated admitting it, she would miss them and their constant nagging. These 2 weeks are going to be lonely. After eating breakfast, Sakura decided to go visit Ino at the flower shop. As she walked through Konoha, her thoughts wandered to Naruto. 2.5 years had gone by, and he didn't really seem to change. He still appeared to be the same old Baka. True, he was taller now, and stronger, and cute. What? Where did that one come from? But he was cute, as much as she would have liked to deny it. If nothing else, time was at least kind to his body. Sakura shook her head violently. No. Naruto and I are just friends. I can't think about him like that. That determination held for all of 10 seconds, before she remembered the smile he had smiled when they met again that day, when he returned. She sighed. It's a good thing I'm going to Ino. I'm really going to need some advice. Gotta tell you, Sakura-chan, I can't blame you. That Naruto is one hot piece of his. Ino quickly ducked under the pillow thrown at her head, letting the fluffy pink down-filled sack collide silently with the wall behind her. Ino, Sakura could feel the blood rushing to her cheeks. Why do you always have to be so honest? The blonde gave a knowing smile. Face it, girl, You never were really good with being honest, especially with yourself. That's half the reason you never had a boyfriend. Ino didn't have to say the other half of the reason out loud, they both knew it. Sakura just never really got over Sasuke's rejecting her and leaving. She still remembered Naruto's bandaged form as he lay in the hospital. The sight struck a chord deep inside her when she realized that the condition of his body was the same as her heart's, bruised and battered, and all because of Sasuke. But Naruto's body healed already, so why did her heart refuse to do the same? Hey, Sakura, Ino spoke to her friend, as she recognized the sullen composure. Only one person ever made her space out this long, and with that specific countenance. Girl, I've been telling you this for months. You have to let it go. Sakura raised her head and sighed. She knew her friend was right. You know I'm trying. I just can't seem to do anything about it. I've tried forgiving him, I've tried forgetting him, I even tried hating him, but nothing works, the fear's still there. For a minute, the room was silent, but then Ino got an idea. You should talk to Naruto. What? Listen, Naruto was just as close to Sasuke as you were, and his leaving probably hurt him just as bad. If anyone can help you with this, it would be him. The two girls sat there, once again silent. After a while, they started talking about less serious stuff, going through the usual gossiping rounds. When the clock struck 12, Sakura left, having to make lunch for herself and Naruto. 14:10, thought Naruto nervously. What's taking her so long? Moments later, he saw a hint of pink in the surrounding greenery, followed by Sakura landing lightly in front of him, picnic basket in hand. Hi, Sakura-chan. Hi, Naruto, she said, setting down the basket. Sorry I'm late. It's okay, he smiled, just don't make a habit of it. One Kakashi is enough. Sakura chuckled, before falling into silence. She wasn't sure how to ask him, but Ino made it clear that she needed to. Do you mind if we sit down? Naruto shrugged and sat down on the grass. Something seemed to be on Sakura's mind, and he felt he should let her talk first. What's on your mind? Sakura sat in front of him and took a deep breath, before beginning to talk. Naruto, I need to ask you something. How did you get over the hurt from Sasuke's leaving? The mention of the bastard stung a little, but Naruto maintained his composure. Why do you want to know? Because I haven't been able to do it yet. She nearly blurted that out. Why was it so difficult and embarrassing to talk to Naruto about this? It shouldn't be. Naruto lay down on the ground, closing his eyes before he spoke. I guess I have to thank Ero-sennin for that one. He taught me that obsessing over Sasuke won't help me, and will only take me out of balance. He told me that Sasuke was the exception, not the rule, and that I can't let that one bad experience prevent me from making any more friends. He smiled sadly. Still, it was hard, you know. Even though I knew that, it was hard to make new friends. Trying to leave that big a part of my past behind me, and then Ero-sennin told me something that I'll always hold in my heart. The people from your past, he said, will always be a part of who you are now. Trying to forget them is useless. There is no reason or sense in letting their memories go. Remember him, Naruto. He's part of who you are now, so don't forget him. Another long pause took place before he continued. After that I suppose I managed to come to grips with the whole thing, and the hurt just went away with time. They sat there in silence for a few minutes, letting it all sink in. Finally, Sakura spoke up again, voicing a question she has been dying to ask for quite a while. Naruto. She waited for him to nod at her before continuing. What is it like? Huh? He grunted. What do you mean? Being a djinn, she caught herself quickly. He hates that word. I mean, having a demon inside of you. What is it like? Naruto sighed, laying his body down on the ground. Wasn't easy, I tell ya. I never knew I had the Kyuubi in me until I was 12. I always had him in me, ever since a few days after I was born, but I didn't find out about it before I graduated from the academy. At least then I knew what the reason everyone always hated me and ignored me was. Sakura didn't know what to say to that, so she chose to say nothing, and let him continue. I never really knew what it meant to have Kyuubi in me, either, before the battle on the bridge all those years ago. You remember, right, when we fought Haku and Zabuza? He then proceeded to tell her about that first time he was taken over by the Kyuubi, and of all of the times he used the demon's chakra. He told her of the treatment he'd received from most everyone in the village, avoiding, pretty obviously, Sakura thought, any talk of how she treated him. The story was sad, shocking, and amazing all at once. Here in front of her eyes lay one of the kindest, most giving, and strongest people she had ever met, and he had lived such a lonely, sad, empty life for so many years. How could you not hate us, Naruto? How can he not hate me? I've been just as bad as the others for so long. Why doesn't he hate us? Naruto simply shrugged, closing his eyes. I dunno, I just don't. Sakura frowned slightly, before smiling. It was still Naruto, after all. You could do almost anything to him and he'll eventually forgive you. But hurt any of his friends and he'll turn into a demon even more fearsome than the Kyuubi. She simply sat there, gazing upon him, amazed. Amazed that her friend could have ever become the person he was. Without any guidance, most people in his situation would probably have become violent hermit sociopaths. Instead, Naruto was, well, he was Naruto. She lay on the grass herself, her head barely 2 inches from his. A few minutes later, she spoke up, once more being the first to break the silence. Hungry. He was about to say yes, when his stomach spoke up for him. A slight blush crept up to his cheeks. Should I bother phrasing it? She chuckled, shoving a hand into the picnic basket and tossing him a sandwich. Thanks, Sakura-chan. No problem. You asked me to make this, right? No, I mean, for listening to me. He paused before taking a bite out of the sandwich. Thanks. Sakura wasn't sure why she did it, but the next moment she was hugging her friend tightly, yet softly. You're welcome. They both enjoyed the closeness for a few moments, before they realized they might be starting to enjoy it a little too much. Naruto was the first to pull back, a noticeable blush on his face. He felt her chest against his, and, although he knew why he had enjoyed the sensation so much, had to back away. Sakura was his friend now, nothing more. He couldn't let himself fall for her again. He'd worked so hard to put his feelings for her in the past, he couldn't surrender to them now. Not again. Sakura was also flustered, but for a slightly different reason. As she felt Naruto's chest moving against hers, she realized that although she thought differently when she first saw him again, he had, in fact, changed. She simply didn't see it at first. He was a man now, if a young one still. And the realization brought forth another. As she held his larger body to her, she felt strangely warm and safe. She felt him pull away, and released the hug, a blush crawling up to her face, which intensified as she saw his own blush. Another conversation with Ino would be necessary. It took them both a bit to compose themselves, but then they were able to enjoy a few hours of peace in each other's company. As the sun began to set, Naruto entered the Godime Hokage's office, seeing her look out the window. You called, Bachan, Tsunade sighed. It seemed he would never address her as anything besides that word. Oh, well, Naruto will be Naruto. It was part of his charm. Yes, Naruto-kun, I did. There was a very important issue I need to discuss with you. She gestured to the chair on his side of the large oak desk, as she took a seat in her own chair. Knowing better than to refuse a request from the woman, he sat in the chair she offered him. What is it, then? I still need to go apartment hunting, you know. I can't live in that motel forever. Naruto, she said, her voice carrying a certain edge that silenced him immediately. What I need to speak with you about is more important than your apartment hunt, more important than your dinner, more important than Sasuke. Now, you listen, and you listen well. Naruto blinked, before nodding. Tsunade smirked. She had really thought she'd need to try harder than that to silence the kid. Either she had managed to be very intimidating, or he isn't as immature as he used to be. Whatever the case, she needed to get on with this. Well, you know that you are the last remaining Uzumaki, right, Naruto? She didn't wait for the nod. Well, now that you're back, there are some family assets that are supposed to come into your possession now. Actually, they were supposed to come into your possession last year, when you turned 16, but since you weren't here to receive them back then, we will have to do this now. Family assets. Naruto never imagined his family had left him anything, much less something that could qualify as assets. Yes. She nodded. You see, the Uzumaki, although a small clan, when compared against the Hyuga for example, were of the most powerful in the Fire Country. And, not unlike several of those clans, they too had a bloodline limit, a dujutsu called the Aohigan, the blue flame eye. Oh my god, I have a bloodline limit. Half of him was expecting Tsunade to wink at him and say, nope, just kidding. The other half was doing cartwheels in his mind. Indeed, Naruto-kun, you do have, or rather, will have a bloodline limit. There is one small complication, we don't know what the Aohigan does, or what causes it to manifest. I can only assume that it is supposed to happen when you are reaching the final stages of puberty, since the information about it could only be unsealed and brought here now that you are almost 17. What do you mean, unsealed? And what information? Tsunade reached below the table, pulling out a wooden box, 2 feet in length, and 1.5 feet in width and height, a large leather-bound book, about 1 foot in height, a few inches smaller in width, and 3 or 4 inches in thickness, and a set of half a dozen keys. This, Naruto-kun, is the first part of your inheritance. The note that came with this said that this key, she held up the smallest key, opens the box. There seems to be a powerful seal placed on the lock, though, since anyone who tried to open the box using the key received a strong electric shock the moment they put it in. I do not know what the other keys open, save one, but I am quite confident that the information you seek will be inside the box. Naruto sat there in silence for a bit, before speaking up. Tsunade-sama, this is a whole lot of information to get in 30 seconds. Could we go back a bit? Can you tell me about who left me these? Who was the last Uzumaki? She looked at him sadly, only barely acknowledging that he hadn't called her Bachan. I am not at liberty to divulge this information to you, Naruto. What do you mean? Why can't you tell me? He rose from his seat. It's the only thing I want to know, Tsunade. I just want to know where I came from. He half shouted. Haven't I earned the right to know by now? He banged his fists on the desk. What more do you want from me? His eyes shone with unshed tears. I'll do it, whatever you want, I'll do it, I swear. He hardly noticed the woman rising from her seat and leaping towards him, before he was caught in a tight, warm embrace. So, please, just tell me, he wept freely now, not fully understanding why he had burst out like he did, or why he was crying. He never cared about his past before, right? So what was different now? As his eyes settled on the 3 objects that sat on the wooden desk, he realized the answer to that question. The difference was that now he had proof that he had a past, that he had had a family. He now had indisputable proof that there were Uzumaki before him, and that he wasn't the only one to bear that name. That had made all the difference in the world. As the young man's sobs finally ceased, Tsunade pulled him away from herself, and raised his face to meet her eyes. Believe me, Naruto-kun, I would like nothing more than to tell you all that I know about your clan, but I am forbidden. All of the information about the Uzumaki was sealed by order of the Sandaime after the Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi inside you. I can't tell you about the last Uzumaki. You will have to find that information yourself, from within these objects of your inheritance. The blonde nodded, and she pulled away further. I'm sorry about that, Tsunade-sama, he said, shakily, I don't know what came over me. She smiled warmly at him. It's quite alright, Naruto, I understand. Are you ready to continue, or do you want to hold off on the rest until tomorrow? I think I'm okay to keep going. She nodded. All right, then to the second part of your inheritance. This key, she said, holding up the second largest of the six, is the key to your new home, the Uzumaki clan house. House. Naruto blinked, breaking a smile. I have a house. Her smile widened. You have a house. I have a house. Naruto was beyond hiding any emotions right then, and he jumped up in a backflip. I have a house. Tsunade smiled. She smiled so hard she was almost afraid her face will be stuck in that position. She just couldn't help it. After seeing him as sad as he had been only minutes prior, seeing him this happy, jumping and flipping, brought a certain warmth to her heart that she couldn't deny or ignore. The feeling she felt towards him made her feel as though she was a big sister to him, or an aunt, or even a mother. Naruto, in the meanwhile, had stopped his literal jumping for joy, and just bathed in that feeling of happiness that swelled in him, so different than the desperate sadness he had felt only minutes earlier. Can I see it now, Tsunade-sama? Please. Still smiling, she shook her head. Not tonight, Naruto-kun. I'll show it to you tomorrow, though, first thing in the morning, okay? He half sighed, but still grinning, nodded. Okay, so where do you want me to meet you? Tsunade held her chin between her thumb and her forefinger. Where are you staying? At that motel near the village entrance. He raised an eyebrow, but shouldn't you already know that? Tsunade smirked. Naruto, while you are important, you are not the only thing I have to keep track of as Hokage. Wait, you're at that Sound's place. Yeah, Tsunade frowned. That place is garbage, Naruto. I can't let you stay there. Well, where else am I going to stay, huh? Kakashi-sensei and Iruka-sensei are already on missions, so I can't crash at their places, and there's no one else in the village that will risk letting me sleep at their house, not even my friends. Their parents will never let them. I have nowhere else to go. Tsunade kept frowning, before an idea crept into her mind that made her crack a smile. Well, Sakura's parents are out of town, you know. And she's a friend. She'll probably have no qualms about letting you sleep at her house for one night. All right, then, it's settled. She continued, without letting him speak his objection or approval. But, he stuttered. No buts, Naruto-kun. Now, how about some dinner before you get your things over to her place? She grabbed him by the sleeve and dragged him off. Come on. Ramen, my treat. Quote. Ino sighed at her pink-haired friend. Okay, so you talked, and he told you this big secret that you can't tell me, and then you hugged. I fail to see the problem. It's not just the hug, Ino-chan. He opened up to me so much, and then, when he told me thanks for listening to him, I just couldn't help myself from hugging him. Yeah, so when I hugged him, I felt something different. Sakura-chan, we've already been through this once today. You feel physically attracted to him, and it's perfectly okay. That's not what I mean. I felt warm and safe, and if he didn't let go then, I don't think I would have. Ino sighed again. Her friend just didn't seem to get it. Okay, Sakura, I'm going to only say this once, and you are going to listen. She sat down next to her friend, on the couch in the Haruno family living room. You like Naruto? What? No, I don't. Would you just shut it for a bit, so that I can finish? Ever since Naruto came back, looking all tall, hot and powerful, you've looked at him differently. I can see it. You're attracted to him now, and with the past you two share, you almost definitely like him, and not just as a friend, okay? Now, you need to get your mind around that, and decide what you want to do with it, but let me just tell you one thing. You made a big mistake with Naruto back then, honey. You know he always liked you, even when you were mean to him and ignored him. Well, you were just as bad. Yes, but he didn't like me, now shush. He always liked you, and you were the one to always push him away. You were his Sasuke, Sakura, and somewhere along the way, he just gave up on you, like you never did with Sasuke. One day he just up and decided that nothing he'd ever do will get you off of Sasuke and over to him, so he decided to stop trying. Oh, he still liked you at that point, I don't doubt that one bit, but you need to realize something, Sakura-chan. And what is that, pray tell? Ino kissed Sakura's forehead before getting up from the couch and heading towards the door. When you came to him that day and asked him to bring Sasuke back, you gave him two things. The first was an objective. A way to make you happy. The only thing you want the person you like to be is happy, and you gave him a way to make that happen. Okay, she replied, with slight trepidation, and what is the second thing? A broken heart. She walked over to the door, then opened it, allowing the light of the dusk to enter the room. Oh, and just as a test, if you still don't believe me that you do, in fact, like the guy, try this. Think of a life without Naruto, think of a life with him only as a friend, and think of a life with him as your boyfriend. You'll figure out the answer. She smiled, winked, and then left, closing the door behind her. Sakura just sat there for a few minutes, letting it all sink in. I broke his heart, didn't I? And yet, he still smiled at her, still was her friend, still refused to hate her. Naruto really was an amazing person. But did she like him? Well, as a friend, of course she liked him. But that wasn't the topic. There was no discussion over whether she liked him as a friend or not. The question was if she liked him as more than a friend. Before he came back, Sakura could say with utmost confidence that she and Naruto were just friends, simple as that. But she couldn't say it so confidently anymore, and Ino, at least, thought that the reason was that she didn't like him as just a friend anymore. Still, she didn't want to jump into any conclusions, especially not ones that Ino had come to. Deciding, for once, to follow her friend's advice, she got off the couch and sat on the floor, crossing her legs. She closed her eyes and tried to envision a life without Naruto. Sasuke would still reject her, she knew now, and without Naruto there to act all goofy and behave like an, there wouldn't be much joy there for her. A lot of sadness, a lot of frustration, and very little joy. She didn't want a life like this. Ever. Naruto was an important part of her life now, she realized. He always cheered her up, always made her smile in the end. She didn't want to live a life without him. The last 2.5 years were enough. Then she pictured the life she had now, with Naruto simply as her friend. It wasn't very hard to do, though, since she was living that life every day now. This life was pretty good, all things considered, but there was still something missing. Some part of her felt empty, and yearning to be filled. But she didn't know what to do to make it better, so instead she made herself busy by shopping and going on small, low-class missions, whenever she couldn't find anyone to hang out with or didn't have any important tasks to do. Her life was busy, but it definitely wasn't full. And Naruto had somehow filled that void a bit. This was a life that she could definitely settle for. After all, what's a little disappointment when you have friends that cheer you up whenever you feel gloomy? Finally, she took a deep breath and attempted to imagine what her life could be if Naruto was her boyfriend. This was a fair bit harder to do than the other two situations, because she had never had a boyfriend before, and only ever imagined Sasuke in that position. Still, she had to try. Once again she took a deep breath and tried to picture going out on a date with Naruto. But what would we do? Naruto would probably want to go and eat ramen, but from that point, she wasn't sure. She strained her mind trying to come up with a scenario that had any likelihood of occurring, but came up blank. What would Naruto want to do on a date? Sakura came to the stunned realization that she didn't know what Naruto liked, apart from ramen, or disliked, except for bad people. She was going nowhere, and she hated when that happened. Okay, forget dates for now. What else would we do? Well, they would talk, and he would make her laugh by acting like an idiot. But they already had that. And if she ever got in danger that she couldn't take on by herself, what then? Well, he would protect her, of course. But they already had that too. So what would we have then that we don't have now? Well, there was the kissing, for one. She could imagine him holding her tightly, but softly, like they did today, and then pulling back a bit to look at her with his big blue eyes, before cracking a smile at her and bringing her face closer to hers. Her heart started racing as she imagined feeling his breath tingling her lips, before feeling his lips at her own. Shivers went up and down her back as she felt in her mind such warmth and contentment the likes of which she never felt before. The kiss stretched on and on in her mind, refusing to stop. And Sakura didn't want it to end. She felt his lips part from hers with more than slight disappointment, before hearing Naruto's voice. Sakura-chan, he whispered in her mind, I love you. Sakura opened her eyes wide, gasping. What she felt as she heard those words from her imagination's Naruto was nothing short of pure bliss. She wanted to feel that touch, to be held like that, to be kissed like that. She wanted to hear those words for real. And, so unlike the Sakura of a few years back, it wasn't Sasuke she wanted those things from anymore. Oh my god, I like Naruto. Author's notes. Okay, let's address the issue you most likely are concerned about right now, the fact that I had Sakura admit to herself that she likes Naruto, and at the end of the very first chapter, no less. Well, what can I tell ya? I didn't want to wait any longer. I didn't want to write that entire long monologue just so she could admit to herself that, maybe she felt a teensy bit of affection towards him. I tried writing it like that at first, but I got discouraged pretty quickly. Besides, if you watched the anime and read the manga back from the beginning, you could see that as soon as the first battle with Zabuza, something has been building inside her for Naruto. She just needed to clear her mind and go into a situation that would bring those emotions to the surface. Well, that's how I saw it anyway. But it doesn't stop here. If you paid good enough attention, you would have noticed that there is a fair bit of trepidation within Naruto concerning this. He believes she is still in love with Sasuke, and whether that is true or not remains to be seen, but either way it prevents him from allowing himself to fall for her again. You'll see that he can't keep away for long, however, especially when Sakura begins to actively pursue him. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling all the tension for you guys, but I thought I'd give the skeptics a little something to calm them down a bit. Well, I'm back, and a whole lot sooner than I thought. Don't think this will always be the case, though, 'cause I'm a stupid, no good, lazy, ADD bastard. I hope you enjoy this chapter as well, but I must warn you that there is a fair bit of fluff here, especially at the end. Now, for the reader mail. In Dark Soren, both of you voiced your concerns about the Aohigan, and I see your points, especially yours, Nitro, but I want to say this to my defense, the Kyuubi doesn't give Naruto a whole lot. Stamina, chakra, strength and endurance. That's it. And none of those things will be of much help against the big boys like Akatsuki and Orochimaru and whoever else may come along wiggling its evil butt. Also, the Aohigan will serve as a connection between Naruto and his clan even if there are none left alive, a connection that, I hope, will have a big part in his growth and evolution as a character. This is not something I decided to do just because I thought that it seemed cool. Sure, that was part of it, but it wasn't the main reason. Jody, yeah, I wasn't completely sold on the title either, but I just couldn't find anything else. Also, I don't feel much like doing the process of creating another title and reposting and everything, and I don't know what the repercussions would be for people who put me on favorites or alerts, so I'm not going to do that. For now at least. Also, thanks for the vote of confidence. Wrathchild, indeed, I am a review whore as well. Everyone else, thank you for the compliments and confidence. I hope that the rest of my work will be as enjoyable as the last chapter. It's reviewers like you and those above that make it worth it to write these stories. You guys are an inspiration and a driving force for me, and I hope I don't disappoint you. A Different Sort of Naruto. By Daniel Goldberg. Chapter 2. His Father's Son. Tsunade couldn't help but smile at the boy, or maybe, young man, was a more suiting term, sitting next to her and scarfing down his third bowl of ramen. Well, perhaps, scarfing was not the correct term, as she was assured by Yumino Iruka that Naruto's usual scarfing was a fair deal worse. Strange though it seemed, his manners have apparently improved during the few years he spent with Jiraiya. I would have thought prolonged exposure to that idiot pervert would have worsened his manners. The thought of those 2 years reminded her of the report Jiraiya finally filled in when he returned. The report of Naruto's training was given directly to her, with no in-betweens. Both she and Jiraiya believed that keeping the boy's abilities secret for now was in his, and Konoha's best interest. Hokage-sama, can't believe I have to call you that now. Geez. Naruto's training has been immensely successful. His progress with jutsus has been so astoundingly quick that I was forced to take him to train in the other countries to learn the jutsus I have not been able to teach him. He has learned many jutsus, I have stopped counting after the first 100, some more useful than the others, and has mastered the use of nearly all of them. Along with that, his chakra stores and control have improved exponentially. That part of his training has gone much better than even I had dared hope. I must say that I have always wondered how he could learn jutsus so quickly, and how he could be as good a tactician when push came to shove as he is. One of my attempts at finding out how this could be led me to, of my own accord and with a certified expert, give Naruto an IQ test. The test results came out as a range of 163 to 177 IQ. Trust me, I was as shocked as you must be to find this, but it's true. Following this discovery, I started the boy on an extensive tactical, analytical and logical training program, which we have done alongside his jutsu and physical training. As with those other two aspects, he has excelled in this as well. At Naruto's request, I purchased for him a great deal of books concerning tactics, diplomacy, and several other subjects we both considered useful reading material for one who plans to become Hokage. The boy has been reading these in his spare time, which, obviously, was extremely scarce, and as you will undoubtedly see, has made leaps and bounds in his interpersonal, tactical and leadership skills. Now, for the subject of the Kyuubi sealed within Naruto, I have been concerned for a long time about the erratic fashion in which he used the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto had to learn to better control the two distinct chakras in his body. I had to force him, at first, to meditate as a method of connecting with the Kyuubi's chakra and refining his methods of pulling from that store, as well as separating it from his own chakra, so that there won't be a case of cross-contamination, as it were, between the two chakras. As I said, that was the situation at first, but a couple of weeks after that he began doing it himself, without my request. When I approached him about this, he told me that he was talking to the Kyuubi. I could get no more out of the boy concerning that, aside from a very clear, "Don't worry." I have attempted no further inquiries on the subject. I may not trust the Kyuubi, but I do trust Naruto. He has trained his body, as well as his mind, every single day. He was tireless, and I must admit that I found myself worrying for the boy's health, both physical and mental, as we both know that prolonged stress is bad for both. His determination, as always, has been unwavering, as has been the kindness of his heart. He has, more than once, assisted people with no money to pay for our services, out of simple generosity and love for his fellow man. He has grown and matured, both in his power and in his heart. I have no doubt in my mind that if he pushes himself enough, he will easily earn the title of Hokage. He is truly his father's son. And, looking at Naruto's smile, hearing his voice and his laughter, seeing his beautiful blue eyes and his flashy blonde hair, she couldn't help but to agree with Jiraiya's words. He truly is his father's son. Arashi-kun, I hope you can see him. Your son will be the bright light of Konoha, just like you always wanted him to be. I like Naruto, Sakura repeated to herself, feeling the words ease a tension she hadn't realized was present in her. She was feeling a sort of elation she had never felt before, as if a heavy weight that rested on her shoulder had been lifted. I can't believe I never saw it before, she thought, because now, Looking back with no bias to corrupt her view, she realized she had held feelings for the blonde-haired ninja for years now. She simply hadn't recognized them at the time because she had fallen so strongly for Sasuke. Sasuke, she still had feelings for him, she knew. Otherwise the pain wouldn't have remained for so long. But the pain she felt because of him now seemed to be almost overshadowed by the might of her feelings for Naruto. In any other circumstance, Sakura would have looked at a person acting and thinking like she was now as a child, simply overreacting to a crush. But this was no crush. This could be no crush. Kakashi was a crush, at one time, as was Iruka. She could recognize a crush by now. Naruto was not a crush. She was well on her way to truly fall in love with him, it seemed. And she couldn't help but feel that she didn't deserve him. I broke his heart. When she asked him to bring Sasuke back for her, though she hadn't truly realized it at the time, Sakura had broken Naruto's heart. And he still went, still made the effort, and almost gave his life, along with his shattered heart, away, just so that she could be happy with Sasuke. Naruto has given her so much, and she only took, looking away from him to Sasuke, the boy she also loved for years, and who betrayed them all. She felt so selfish for allowing Naruto to be hurt for her sake, breaking his heart and trying to save a person who didn't want to be saved, and who probably was beyond any rescue at this point. It was at that moment that Sakura made a decision. From this day onward, and until he tells me to stop, she said aloud, as though voicing the oath would make it more real to her, I, Haruno Sakura, will do whatever I can to keep Naruto happy. I will stay by his side for as long as he lets me. I will give everything for him, and ask nothing in return. From this day onward, I, Haruno Sakura, will make myself worthy of the love he feels for me, felt for me. It was her only hope at that moment that the heart she broke could still be mended, and that there would still be a place in it for her when it did. Tsunade Bachan. Naruto spoke as they left the Ichiraku. His eyes were set on the box in his hands, upon which a heavy book was set. Tsunade's smile changed into a smirk. He was calling her by his pet name again, so he must not be as emotionally frazzled as before. Yes, Naruto-kun. Look, I know you said that you can't tell me about who was the last Uzumaki before me, but could you maybe tell me about something else concerning my clan? Tsunade quirked an eyebrow slightly at the tactfulness of his speech. Unlike what she had thought when she first met him anew, he hasn't grown up to be another Jiraiya. Perhaps, but I will need to hear the questions first, she said with a smirk. Naruto chuckled, and nodded. Well, I was wondering, before I start to delve into the history of my clan, could you tell me, he seemed to consider his words as he spoke them, were the Uzumaki good people? Why do you ask, Naruto? Well, he began, uncertain, well, you say that the Uzumaki had a bloodline limit called the Aohigan, the blue flame eye, a dujutsu. He barely noticed her nod, so absorbed was he in his thoughts, and I've only ever met people from two dujutsu clans, the Uchiha and the Hyuga, and I don't think I like those people. Well, maybe except for Hinata and Neji, but the others always seemed so stuck up and prideful and self-important, and the Uchiha, well, I've only ever met Sasuke and Itachi, but they both ended up going evil. Naruto sighed. So, if all I'm going to find out is that the Uzumaki were stuck up, power-hungry, selfish, I need you to tell me, because. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, Tsunade said softly, interrupting him, the Uzumaki were none of those things. They were noble and powerful, yes, and they possessed a Dujutsu bloodline limit powerful enough to match and possibly even surpass the all-seeing Byakugan or the all-knowing Sharingan, but they were also kind and giving, and, well, good. So don't worry, Naruto, you won't find shame in the history of your clan. Well, perhaps a bit here and there, but no clan has always been empty of bad people, no matter what they claim. The Kyuubi bearer sighed with relief, a smile gracing his lips and his eyes as he looked at her, a wordless, thank you, spoken through them. Sakura smiled wryly at her words. Looks like Naruto isn't the only one making oaths anymore. An oath she doesn't even know if she can keep. Could she really make him happy now? Was she in the position to bring him joy, or would every attempt she'd make only cause him more sorrow? Because he gave up on me, right? Ino was probably right about that too, damn her. 2.5 years is a long time, and he most likely found another girl during that time. And even if he didn't, he had given up on being with her, and probably resolved himself to a one-sided love with her. And he's so stubborn that anything she'd do for him would probably be spun around as something he was misreading. He'll think that she was just being nice to him, and that he shouldn't read into it, which would only make him more depressed. Sakura sighed dejectedly, rising from her sitting position on the floor to collapse backwards onto the sofa. So what in the seven hells can I do? She couldn't tell him outright that she has feelings for him, because even though she knew she did, it was just too soon to put it out there. And she didn't even know if he loved her anymore. If he found another girl during those years, then he probably stopped loving her, and focused on the other girl. So what is she going to do? How could she strike hope in the heart of the blonde shinobi that he has a chance with her? Did she even have a chance with him anymore? This is so much harder than Ino made it sound. All right, said the bright-haired woman as she set the 2 boxes she was carrying on the ground by the door. I'll be here at 7:30 in the morning to pick you up, okay? Sure, Bachan, the boy grinned widely, I'll be here, so long as Sakura doesn't toss me out on my. Tsunade chuckled, ruffled his hair a bit, and walked off, raising her hand in parting. Naruto grumbled slightly at the childlike treatment he'd just received, but still grinned. It was worth being treated like a kid every now and then, to be here, in Konoha, back where he belonged. Even if not everyone was as good to him as his friends were. He turned to the door of Sakura's house and knocked. A few moments later the door was opened. Gah! Sakura yelped in her mind at the sight of the smiling blonde in front of her. Oh, crap, I'm not ready for this yet. Okay, relax, Sakura, you can do this, okay? Just say the words. Hello, Naruto, she said. Did I just stutter? Who am I, Hinata? Hi, he said. Did she just stutter? Hey, Sakura, is there any chance you could let me stay the night? Tsunade Bachan kind of made me throw myself out of that motel I was staying in. What? Stay the night? Here? Oh, crap. Is this a bad time? He asked. Yes, it's a bad time, damn it, I can't deal with having you here so soon after I figured out I like you. You know, 'cause if it is, I'll just find somewhere else to crash. No, not at all, come in. Did I just? I did. Crap. Matchmaking again, Hokage-sama. Spoke a white-haired man from the rooftop above her, who then jumped down a few feet in front of her, holding a bottle of sake. Tsunade groaned, what do you want, Jiraiya? Nothing much, just a drink with an old friend. Tsunade smirked, I think I can do that, but don't try pulling any stunts. Or else, she left the threat hanging in the air. Wouldn't dream of it, he assured her. Well, maybe dream of it, yes, but I won't do anything, promise. They walked in silence for a few minutes, before reaching a terrace overlooking Konoha. Jiraiya vaguely recognized it as the place where he gave Naruto that speech yesterday. He pulled out 2 glasses, filled both with sake and gave one to the woman beside him. She took it gingerly and turned to look at the dull lights of Konoha's street lamps. Is he strong enough? She asked. He leaned his back on the rail surrounding the terrace, next to the Godime, and sighed. I'm not sure, Tsunade. Has he improved? Very much so. Is he prepared to face the dangers he'll have to face? I believe so. Is he strong enough for what could happen in the end? I just don't know. He can't let go yet. No. He's still angry. Still sad. Still blames himself. Is he still hurt over Sasuke? Hurt? No. I don't think so. Still, he thinks he didn't try hard enough. That he should have been able to keep going. That if he had been stronger than he was, everything would have been alright. What did you tell him? He laughed bitterly. What could I tell him, Tsunade? Nothing I'd say would change how he felt, or how he feels. I know that better than anyone. Tsunade gulped down the last of her cup and refilled it. Orochimaru, huh? Jiraiya nodded. Orochimaru. It took me a very long time to stop thinking I could have done anything about him. I kept thinking that if I was stronger, if I tried harder, if I had been a better friend, he wouldn't have fallen to darkness. Naruto is going through the same thing. Tsunade spoke as he filled his own cup again. Does he know that in the end, he might have to kill Sasuke? Yes, he nodded, but I don't think he's ready to truly accept that yet. He thinks that there still is a chance to save the Uchiha. And you don't. I don't think that things will end up that way, no. He said, taking a long sip from his cup. But if there's one thing all my time with him has taught me, it's that nothing is certain with Naruto. He just might pull it off. Tsunade gave him a small smile, which he returned. Naruto, Jiraiya thought, looking at the faces of the Hokages carved into the mountain, one of them in particular. Naruto-kun, thought Tsunade, looking at the lights of nighttime Konoha. He just might make it. Sakura-chan, are you sure you're okay? Naruto wondered. Yes, of course I'm okay. She said, knowing she wasn't really okay, but you realize this is a lot to take in at once, right? She also knew that wasn't the real reason for it. Oh, yeah, he said, and scratched the back of his head out of embarrassment. I kinda felt like that too when she told me, sorry. He finished with a goofy, apologetic grin. Sakura finally managed to relax a bit at the look on his face. That's right, it was still Naruto. He didn't change. She didn't have to be nervous around him. Even though she was. So, just let me see if I got it straight, you have a bloodline limit. Will have, he corrected her mildly. Right, called the Aohigan, which no one knows about. Yeah, but I'm not so sure that no one really knows about it. Someone had to be my mom's or my dad's, whoever was born in Uzumaki, sensei, right? So they have to know something about it. And do you know who they are? Not yet, but I'll find out. The information about my clan should be in that box. And Tsunade Bachan gave me the key. Sakura hesitated slightly before she spoke again. Do you want to open it now? Naruto nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. Do you want me to leave for a bit? No. He burst out suddenly. No, I'd like you to stay with me, if you don't mind. Sakura felt a mild heat rise to her face at his words, though she wasn't entirely sure why. Okay, I'll stay, then. He rose from his seat and walked to the door, where he left his stuff. He brought back the box and the keys, and set them down in the center of the living room. He sat down in front of the box, and grabbed the smallest key of the 6. When he didn't move for over 15 seconds, Sakura called out to him, Naruto. Why yeah, he stumbled, it's just, I don't know, a little scary, I guess. Finding out about the family I never thought I ever had. I'm just, he stopped when he felt her hand on his shoulder. It's okay, Naruto, she said in as soothing a tone as she could manage, and knelt beside him, I'm here. Everything's alright. Sakura nearly gasped when he placed his hand on hers and held it there. His hand, it's so warm. Damn it, Naruto muttered in his mind. He knew it wouldn't last. He knew it wasn't truly real. He knew it would just end up hurting him in the end. He knew, but he didn't stop it. He let himself fall to that illusion. Again, like he did all those years ago. He needed her right now. And so he let himself, ever so slightly, fall for her again. Thanks, Sakura-chan. She saw him ever so slowly start to move the key to the keyhole. She saw him trying to place it in the hole, but his hand was shaking, and he couldn't manage it. She gave his shoulder a reassuring squeeze, and felt him squeeze her hand in return. He placed the key in the keyhole and turned it. A click sounded, and Naruto pushed up the lid. Inside was a black velvet-covered case, set atop 2 sliding doors. More things must be under those doors, he knew, but right now he felt that the case was more important. He opened it to reveal a sphere. Wow, Sakura thought, as she looked into the small ball. It was a bright, bright blue, so beautiful that it almost blinded her, and it shined, looking as if it had an aura around it. She looked deep into the sphere, and saw a white, multi-pronged starburst flash within it. An odd sensation washed over her, and she blinked several times at the sudden change in her surroundings. Naruto had been mesmerized by the ball, himself, and also had to blink at the new place he found himself in all of a sudden. He was no longer sitting by the box, but at the edge of a pond. Looking past the water, he could see it must be autumn, as every so often, leaves would fall from the many trees on that side of the pond. Sakura-chan, are you seeing this too? Sakura gulped. Yeah, she stood up with him, only barely registering the fact that he was still holding her hand. The place was beautiful, but strange. For some reason, everything was tinged ever so slightly with blue. Hand in hand, they turned around until the pond was to their left. It was then that their eyes fell upon a man just a few feet away from them, leaning towards the water. The man straightened up and turned to face them. His hair was spiky and blonde, the front falling slightly over his Konoha Hitai, his eyes were a bright blue, and his lips were curled in a wide, laughing smile. He wore a long white coat over his blue pants and shirt, and over the shirt itself was a chunin vest, open in the front. Sakura recognized him from the history classes in the academy. The Yondaime. Sakura wondered, what was the Yondaime doing here? And if it was the Yondaime, where was here? She was about to speak up and ask, but the man spoke first. Naruto, he said, his smile widening so much that his eyes nearly closed, my son. Right, Tsunade, I think that's enough sake for you. Jiraiya said, picking the woman up bodily onto his shoulders and hopping away in the direction of the Hokage's tower. Stop being such a spoilsport, Jiraiya, Tsunade complained, I can keep going. The white-haired Sannin sighed, I know you can. That's why I'm taking you back. A small hiccup was followed by a slurred, party pooper. She giggled girlishly, causing Jiraiya to sigh again. When they finally made it to the tower, Jiraiya put her down on her bed. Right, Tsunade, have a good night's sleep. He turned to walk away, but was pulled around. Suddenly he felt warm, luscious lips pressed against his own. When she pulled back from him, he asked, what was that for? For being there after Nawaki and Dan died, she said, and for sticking around after you came back. She let go of his arm and fell backwards onto her bed. I missed you. Jiraiya stood there stunned for a few seconds, before smiling softly, I missed you too, Tsunade. He looked at her face, seeing that she had already fallen asleep, and chuckled. As he stood on the ledge of the open window, ready to jump off, he gave her one more look and sighed softly, good night, Tsunade-chan. Son. That's my dad. Naruto couldn't understand it. How could the Yondaime, as there was no mistaking his appearance, be his father? More importantly, how could he be there, looking so alive, when Naruto knew for certain that the process of sealing the Kyuubi within him had taken the Yondaime's life? Who are you? He called out. And how do you know my name? The man's smile seemed to weaken slightly, as though he was saddened that the boy didn't recognize him. I am Uzumaki Arashi, the Yondaime Hokage, and I know your name, Naruto, because I am your father. Sakura felt Naruto's hand loosen its grip on hers, and squeezed it, feeling his grip tighten back slightly. How can you be the Yondaime? She asked. The Yondaime's dead, isn't he? The man sighed lightly, and began to walk away from them. As he walked he called back cheerily, well, come on, you two, I'll explain it over a meal. When the pair caught up with him, he turned to face them, grinning, how do you feel about ramen? Naruto, whose uncertainty had dominated his appearance only seconds ago, perked up instantly. Ramen's my favorite, he said, grinning as well. Hey, mine too. As she saw the two side by side, Sakura could spot all of the likenesses between them, and they were so plentiful, so painfully obvious now, that she could only wonder why no one ever commented on it before. So the Yondaime is my father, huh? Naruto thought as they walked. I never imagined it could be him. Not someone as famous and powerful as him. If he was my father, then why was I treated the way I was treated? Arashi led them to the other side of the large clearing they were in, to a picnic table. On the table were 3 bowls of ramen. He sat down and gave Naruto and Sakura each a bowl and chopsticks, itadakimasu. He said, and started eating. Naruto and Sakura followed swiftly, Sakura a bit reluctant to let go of his hand. After a few minutes, Arashi sighed dejectedly, and set his chopsticks down. So they didn't treat you like I wanted, did they? What? The people in Konoha, he said, they treated you poorly, like you were the demon sealed inside you. Naruto sighed, setting down his own chopsticks. Yeah, they did. Suddenly he raised his head, but how do you know that? Arashi smiled warmly. This place lets me see inside your memories, son. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about it first. He caught a sharp glance from the pink-haired girl. Don't worry, Sakura-san, I can't see yours. Only Naruto's. Okay, and if you are my father, then I don't mind, Naruto began, but then, how did you want them to treat me when you sealed the Kyuubi in me? I wanted them to see you as I saw you, a treasure worth protecting. A child that will become a protector of Konoha, and would wield the Kyuubi's strength in his efforts to do so. I'm glad to see that you did become that, Naruto, in spite of everything. I'm proud of you. Naruto felt a certain warmth in his heart at that. The same kind of warmth he had felt when Iruka-sensei gave him his Hittite all those years ago. Thanks, Dad. Arashi grinned broadly. So you believe I'm your father now? Naruto nodded. I do. I don't know how you could be here, like this, or where, here, even is, but I believe you are my father. Sakura smiled. Naruto looked so happy right then, with his father. She almost felt like she was intruding on something private. So, Yondaime-sama, what is this place, and how could you be here? Please, Sakura-san, call me Arashi, he said, and as for this place, I suppose you can call it a sort of pocket world. My soul is connected to the blue sphere you found in that box. That is how I can be here, with you, in the world inside the sphere. Inside the sphere? Sakura asked. Arashi nodded. Indeed. This place we are in isn't part of the real world, but a manufactured one. You aren't here physically, and neither am I. Our souls are here, instead. Naruto nodded. Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, we're all here, and I finally get to meet my family, right? Arashi's smile wavered slightly. Well, Naruto, not really. You can't stay here for much longer now, and I can't show you the rest of this place in the small amount of time we have left. Naruto stood up suddenly. What do you mean? Why can't we stay here longer? Arashi stood up as well. Naruto, son, listen to me. The sphere is losing its stability, and if you stay here much longer, this place will collapse entirely. If you leave now, it will start to regain its stability, and you will be able to come back here again, to see me again. Arashi pulled Naruto into a fierce hug, and with a tear-struck face spoke once more. Goodbye, son, tell Kakashi-kun and Jiraiya-sensei hello for me, okay? I'll see you soon. Naruto was letting down tears of his own, for the second time that night. Goodbye, Dad. I'll see you soon. And within 5 seconds, the clearing faded away, and they were in the living room of Sakura's house once more. Still crying, he put the blue ball back inside the velvet-covered case, and closed the box. Sakura-chan, he said, his voice cracking slightly, can you? He couldn't manage to get the words out, so he turned around and all but collapsed on her shoulder, weeping softly. Naruto, Sakura began, unsure of what she wanted to say. What could she say to someone who in a few short minutes had found and lost his father? What consolation could she offer him? So she just let him cry his sadness away, and led him to the sofa, where they both sat down, and he still cried. Damn it, Naruto thought once more. He had failed. He had lost control over his emotions again. And he was taking comfort in Sakura. Again. The hold he had managed to place on his feelings for her during the past years had been broken. He had fallen for her again. Fallen in love with the girl who would never love him, because she was in love with his former rival and best friend, who left them all behind in his search for power. He let himself go entirely, even though he knew it would only hurt him in the end. Sakura-chan, he mumbled through his tears of loss and frustration, I need to tell you something, okay? He pulled away from her embrace, to look into her eyes, to see them one last time, before he loses them forever. Just promise you won't get angry, okay? What is it, Naruto? She asked with apprehension. You know you can tell me anything. Naruto sighed. This was it, now or never. He had to get this out, before it bore a hole right through him. Sakura-chan, I love you. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the rejection that was undoubtedly on its way. Instead, he felt a pair of warm lips brush against his own, and two arms embrace him. He was lost inside that tender kiss, inside that soft embrace. He hadn't been rejected. He had been accepted. By Sakura. He felt her back away slightly, and opened his eyes. In front of him was Sakura, smiling, small tears falling from her eyes. Naruto, she said, her voice hardly more than a whisper, but yet clearer than the purest diamond. Me too. She fell onto him, her lips against his, searching, seeking, and finally, finding. A wave of joy washed over her. I love you too. Author's notes. Well, I did warn you of the fluffiness, didn't I? I'm sorry if getting the two together here, at the end of the very second chapter is a bit too much, but as I was writing it, it just seemed so right, so perfectly fitting, that I just couldn't hold back on it. I'm sorry that I didn't get any battles in or anything about the Aohigan like I promised, but I couldn't find a way to put them in that didn't seem arbitrary and stupid. Oh, and I'm sorry about the small Tsunade x Jiraiya bit there, but come on, it was cute, right? A Different Sort of Naruto. By Daniel Goldberg. Chapter 3. Home. Naruto nearly jumped out of his skin when he woke up to the sunrise the following morning, the cause of his alarm being the warm pink-haired girl that was sleeping atop him. Sakura. As he saw her there, breathing slowly, a smile plastered on her face, one thought came to his mind. What in the holy heebie-jeebies is going on? The memories of yesterday came back to him like a freight train. Last night, he lost control. After the ordeal with his father in the sphere, he totally lost control. The dam that held his feelings for Sakura had been broken, and he was flooded again. And he told her he loves her. And she said she loves him too. She loves me. Thank the gods, she loves him. Naruto caught a soul tear falling from his eye, and smiled. It was okay to cry when you were happy, after all. And happy he was. How could he not be? She loves him. How long had he wished for that to happen? How long ago did he give up? And now it happened. It was real. It was true. She loves him. Oh, God, Tsunade groaned, my head. What did I do to deserve this? Memories of the previous night came back to her with all the gentleness of a herd of stampeding wildebeest, the talk on the terrace, the view of Konoha at night, the sake, oh God, the sake. Jiraiya. She remembered him bringing her back after she got drunk. She remembered him putting her on the bed. She remembered pulling the man back as he turned to exit the room. Her hand flitted to her lips. She remembered. Did I? I did. Crap. Sakura woke up to the smiling face of the man she loved. She snuggled into him, closing her eyes for a bit, before opening them. Yes, he was still there. She rested her ear on his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart. Naruto pulled a few stray locks of pink from her face to behind her ear. Hey, Sakura chortled. Hey yourself. When did we fall asleep? He asked, not really caring about the answer. Probably somewhere between the hugging and the kissing. She smirked. Which reminds me, she pulled herself up, straddling him, and leaned down to meet his lips with hers. Naruto ran his hand in her hair as they kissed, enjoying the softness. "Good morning," she finally said when she pulled back. "So you love me too, huh?" She smiled. "Yep. Just don't let it go to your head." "Nope. It's staying right here." He gestured to his heart. "That was so incredibly corny," she said, smirking. "You know that, right?" "Meh." He shrugged. "You'll live." And as they lay there, in each other's warmth, Sakura couldn't help but wonder how it could be so comfortable, so not awkward, so easy. Not that I'm complaining. It was half an hour later before either attempted to disengage from the other, and even that was due to necessities. Necessity being something Naruto muttered about, nature's call, or something. Yawning, Sakura pulled some cereals, 2 bowls and some milk out of the refrigerator and cupboards, and did her best impression of someone making breakfast. She heard the toilet being flushed, followed by the sound of the tap running. Cleanliness, check. She mentally chuckled as she sat down at the table and started eating. "Say, Sakura-chan," he said as he sat down in the chair opposite hers, pulling the unoccupied bowl to him, "what do you want to tell people?" She muttered, still a bit groggy, even with the pleasant awakening she had received. "I mean, what do you want to tell Tsunade-bachan, or Ino, or Kakashi-sensei?" He said, raising the spoon to his mouth and emptying its contents therein. "Do you want to tell them that we're dating, or that we're still just friends, or that you don't know what we are?" She pondered. "How about, I tell them that you're my boyfriend?" "Really? This soon?" he asked. "Not that I'm complaining or anything, but I just figured you wouldn't want to rush it like that." "Naruto, how long have you waited for me? And how long do you think I've been waiting for someone I love to love me back?" she asked, holding her hand out across the table, which he took in his not a moment later. "I don't want to wait anymore, Naruto. I don't want to keep holding off until the time is right, or something better comes along. This is the right time for me, Naruto, and you are my something better. I'm just so glad you came along when you did." "So am I, Sakura-chan." He smiled softly. "So am I." God, we sound so cheesy, don't we? Naruto chuckled. "Yeah, maybe. I think I like cheesy." "You know what, Naruto?" she began. "I think I like it too." Naruto bent down to kiss the hand he was holding. "Sakura-chan, are you busy this morning?" "No, I don't think so." "Why?" "Because Tsunade-bachan is taking me to the Uzumaki clan house. You want to come with?" "Sure. Okay. You too," grunted an irate Tsunade. "Mind telling me why you're both so freaking giggly?" The 2 teenage ninjas had been getting on her nerves ever since they left her apprentice's house. "Sheesh. Must be one hell of a hangover," the blonde shinobi muttered. The pink-haired one was suppressing a chuckle. "Stop it, Naruto," she said, "show some respect." Yeah, okay, sorry, bachan." Out of the corner of her eye she could see Sakura give Naruto a light smack to the back of the head. In response, the boy stuck his tongue out at the girl, who sighed back at him. Overall, not an uncommon occurrence, but there was still something different about the situation. Something she couldn't put her finger on. If she wasn't so focused on her headache and other assorted gloom, she might have noticed that they were holding hands. "Wow," Sakura said with awe at the view of the Uzumaki clan house. A single, 3-floor, red brick house with a pearly white tile roof stood in the middle of what looked to be a small fenced-in forest. The leaves on the trees were as many shades of yellow, red, brown and green, signaling the coming of autumn. Where they now stood was a gate, which opened up to a brick path that led up to the house and its large redwood door. Tsunade smiled at the look of the place. "It hasn't changed a bit." She led the pair around the house. As he followed Tsunade around the house, Naruto couldn't help but feel as though the place was familiar to him. When they walked through a narrow bare path and exited it into a clearing, he understood why. There was the picnic table, and the pond, and the trees, from which every so often a leaf would fall. He had already been to this place. In the sphere. Sakura-chan, I'm not imagining this, am I? Not unless I'm imagining it too, Naruto. She said to him, although he had already begun walking toward the pond. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. What are you two talking about? Sakura then began to tell her about last night, when they came there in the sphere. The grass rustled silently beneath his feet as he stood at the edge of the water, and leaned his body toward it. Ah, I see, Tsunade said quietly, so that's what happened. In the water he looked at his reflection, when suddenly the face looking back at him wasn't his anymore. Sakura nodded at her sensei, and then we were back in my living room. It was his father's face looking back at him, grinning. He let a small smile grace his lips at that. Well, then, now he knows. Tsunade was glad of it, although she did feel sorry that Naruto hadn't been able to stay longer with his father. A leaf fell into the water, generating a ripple that disrupted the visage of Uzumaki Arashi. When the ripple subsided, Naruto was looking at his own reflection once more. With a soft sigh he walked back to the two women he came with. Naruto-kun, Tsunade began, let's go inside, okay. Naruto looked at her in silence for a few moments, then let his mouth curl up in a smile. Yeah, they walked back out of the clearing and around the house, arriving at the large door. Naruto-kun, Tsunade said, you got the key, right? Naruto nodded and pulled out the keychain, pushing the second largest key into the door's lock and turning it. A soft click was heard, and Naruto pushed the door open, walking inside, with Tsunade and Sakura at his heels. The door opened into a living room. A completely ordinary, fully furnished living room. No unnecessary decorations or trinkets or things of that sort. He wasn't sure why the lack of anything special had made him feel relieved, but it had. Tsunade was the first to speak. Right, well, shall I give you the grand tour? Naruto, are you coming down anytime soon? Sakura called out from the living room. She was sitting on one of the sofas, Tsunade having taken the other for herself, drinking tea. In a minute, Sakura-chan, he yelled back, I want to have one more look. Sakura sighed, taking another sip of tea. Anything you want to tell me, Sakura? What do you mean, Tsunade-sama? You and Naruto-kun have been acting strange all morning. Did anything happen between the two of you yesterday? Stunned at the sudden question, Sakura didn't say a word for more than a minute. Finally, however, she remembered what she talked about with Naruto that morning. Yes, Tsunade-sama, she said, me and Naruto, well, we're together now. Tsunade leaned in, her countenance one of extreme curiosity, together. You mean like boyfriend-girlfriend together? Sakura felt heat rise to her face. Why yeah, why am I so embarrassed all of a sudden? Why am I nervous about telling her about this? Tsunade's lips cracked into a catty smirk, have you done it yet? Oh, right, that's why. Tsunade-sama, stop it. She groaned, we've only been together since last night. The Godime laughed, leaning back on the couch, oh, come on, Sakura, you know I was only teasing you. As her laughter subsided somewhat, she continued, so it finally happened, huh? What do you mean, finally? Naruto, he finally won you over. Tsunade smiled, it's been a long time coming. Yeah, I guess it has. The two kunoichi sat there in a pleasant silence, drinking their tea. Naruto had come down soon afterwards, sitting down next to Sakura. It was a few minutes later before anyone had spoken up. Tsunade-bachan, how did you know your way around here? Did you know my dad? The answer came not a second later, but not from Tsunade. Well, Jiraiya-sama was his sensei, Naruto, Sakura muttered, so obviously their paths would cross from time to time. Ero Sennin was my dad's sensei. He was answered by a nod from both women. Oh, right, when we went to bring Tsunade-bachan to Konoha, they talked about him. Another patch of silence fell upon them. Tsunade-sama, Sakura began again, can you answer a question? Shoot. Well, the Yondaime was, Naruto's father, right? So why did he get treated like he did? Why wasn't he treated better? Sakura-chan, Naruto smiled softly at her concern for him. Tsunade sighed, I can't tell you for sure. That sort of blind idiocy is something I don't think I'll ever be able to understand. But the first thing you need to know is that the records of Naruto's birth to the Uzumaki clan were sealed after Arashi-kun died, so the only people who knew he was the Yondaime's child were him, his wife, the Sandaime, Jiraiya and myself. But my name is Uzumaki. Naruto burst out. Yes, but to the people who didn't know the truth, you were just the demon kid who stole the Yondaime's last name after he stole his life. Like I said, idiocy beyond my understanding. But then, why didn't the Sandaime release the records of Naruto's birth? It would have helped make them understand, at the very least, wouldn't it? Maybe so, but that wasn't the only consideration. As Hokage, Arashi-kun had earned himself a lot of enemies in the other countries during the wars. If word had gotten out that the Yondaime had a child, and that he was living in Konoha, Naruto would have been in constant danger. Sarutobi-sensei figured that it was more important to keep him safe until he was old enough to take care of himself, than to let people know exactly who he was. Okay, Tsunade-bachan, I understand. But what do we do now? If I move into this house, the Yondaime's house, people are either going to ask questions that I don't think I can avoid answering for long, or otherwise think that not only did I steal his life and name, but now his house too. You have a point there, Naruto-kun. But it really isn't my decision to make. Then whose is it, Tsunade-sama? What to do with this, and whether to tell everyone or not, that decision is Naruto's. Silence followed once more. Do I have to give you an answer right now? Not at all, Naruto-kun. You take as long as you want. Okay, thanks. Naruto looked around the room, which was so immaculately clean he couldn't fathom the thought that for over 16 years, this house was pretty much abandoned. Man, Sandaime Gigi made sure this place was in tip-top shape, even after he died. Yeah, he wanted you to have a home to come to, whenever you found out about your father. Naruto chuckled. Yet another reason to thank the old fart. That afternoon, Naruto and Sakura sat near the stream at Team 7's old training spot. Well, Sakura was sitting, anyway, Naruto was lying with his head in her lap, his eyes closed as he savored the moment, like he had been savoring every moment he had with her. You know, Sakura-chan, he mumbled, this, you and me, it's almost too good to be true. Sakura smiled down at him. Yeah, I know, she said, I never thought it could be this easy so soon. I always figured it would be all awkward and slow-paced. I know that everything we've done should seem like we rushed it, but for some reason, it feels like it's going exactly the way it should. He finished her sentence for her. Yeah, I feel that way too. Why do you think that is, though? She asked. Why does it come so easily? He opened his eyes, and looked into hers. Well, I'm not sure, really. Maybe it's 'cause we've known each other for as long as we have. Maybe it's the fact that we trust each other as much as we do. For me, it might simply be because I've been in love with you for so long. Maybe it all makes it easier. Sakura pondered his words. Maybe. She leaned down to kiss him, her lips brushing softly against his. Ah, so Gadaime-sama wasn't lying, called out a voice suddenly, causing the two teens to nearly jump with surprise. About time, you guys. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto grinned broadly. What are you doing back? The mission ended up being much shorter than we thought, so I was able to come back today. Kakashi smiled back at them, or at least it looked like he did. His eye moved, at least. But, Naruto, he said, his expression falling back to its usual seriousness, it seems you have been less than honest with us, haven't you? Less than honest, came the shocked thought to Sakura. What does he mean? Hey, Naruto rose from Sakura's lap, leaning his arm on his knee. So you spoke with Ero Sennin? Yes, I did, he said, a strange glint in his eye. It looked almost as if he was excited. So show me how much you've truly improved, Naruto. I want to see it for myself. What are you talking about? Sakura couldn't understand what was happening. Sakura-chan, Naruto said as he stood up, I'm sorry for not telling you everything earlier, but when we went to rescue Gaara, I didn't show my full capabilities. With Akatsuki there, I couldn't risk showing my true power. Naruto, like Kakashi, was almost shivering with excitement and anticipation. Sakura, Kakashi spoke sternly, I'm going to test Naruto's abilities now, so please move away. Sakura-chan, Naruto said, turning to face her with a smile, it's okay, so just back away a bit. Sakura consented to the two shinobi's request, but couldn't help but wonder, what the hell is going on? The air seemed to almost crackle with electricity as the two ninjas stood there, neither entering any sort of battle stance whatsoever. It was about a minute after when Naruto spoke up, Nay, Kakashi, are you going to come at me or not? Although his outward appearance showed no sign of this, inside his own mind, Kakashi just gasped. Standing like that, and saying those words, Naruto looked so much like Arashi-sensei. Naruto gave a little laugh. Alright, then, and he vanished, appearing right in front of Kakashi not a second later, I'll start. He threw a punch at the silver-haired Junin, catching him in the gut. Sakura couldn't believe it. Naruto actually managed to hit Kakashi. How could he be so fast? Kakashi was thinking along the same lines as he quickly crouched down and turned in an attempt to sweep the blonde's feet from under him. He managed to do so, but wasn't able to prevent him from pulling his legs further up and thrusting his hands toward the ground to flip himself back onto his feet a few feet away from him. Impressive, Naruto. Please, Kakashi. Naruto rolled his eyes, we're both just getting warmed up. Kakashi chuckled, that we are. Naruto's hands ran through several seals. Kakashi remembered seeing this sequence of seals once before, but he couldn't seem to place it. Naruto crouched, ran one hand through the grass, and pulled out a handful of blades. Bokuso Senbon no Jutsu. Grass needles, he called out, and the blades of grass that hung limp in his hand a second ago thinned and hardened into sharp green Senbon needles, which he tossed in a scatter blast pattern akin to a shotgun blast, if you've ever seen one, at Kakashi. Kakashi swerved to the side as soon as Naruto threw the needles, certain he had dodged them. He hadn't seen Naruto form another seal as soon as he tossed the grass Senbons, however, Senbon Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Needle Shadow Clone. Suddenly, the small group of needles had multiplied into several scatter blast patterns, and Kakashi was forced to gather chakra quickly into his legs and jump in order to avoid them. Naruto, amazing, thought Sakura as she saw him jump up after Kakashi, spinning to give the Junin a roundhouse kick to the ribs. Kakashi intercepted the kick with his forearm, and forced Naruto to spin around, before sending a thrust kick to his back. Naruto practically flew from the force of the kick, creating a small crater where his body hit the ground and raising a cloud of dirt. The cloud hadn't even begun to settle before a yell of, Sweden. Teppadama, water release. Gunshot was heard, followed shortly by the emergence of 5 fist-sized globes of water flying from the cloud towards Kakashi. Still in midair, Kakashi somehow managed to dodge 4 of the projectiles, but was struck by the 5th. The impact threw the Junin flipping backwards, but he was able to get his feet to the ground and slid backwards along the ground. After less than 5 seconds, the two shinobi were moving again, both were holding a kunai in each hand and were running straight towards each other, apparently intending to finish the so-called test in an armed taijutsu bout. Right before they clashed, Naruto jumped over Kakashi's head, turning in a half-circle in midair and landed behind him with his left hand holding a kunai held in a reverse grip, the blade held toward the outside of arm, not the inside, at Kakashi's neck. Kakashi's reply to that action was to bring his right hand, also holding a kunai in reverse grip, to Naruto's stomach, forcing the blonde to jump away quickly. Kakashi turned around instantly and launched himself at Naruto, bringing the kunai of his left hand, still held in the standard manner, down to slash at his right shoulder. Naruto quickly raised the kunai in his right hand to bat away the strike, and received a swift knee to the abdomen, knocking the breath out of his lungs and forcing him to stagger backwards a bit. Recovering quickly, Naruto pounced at the silver-haired shinobi. Kunai met Kunai once more, and Naruto spun around, crouching, as though to sweep-kick Kakashi's feet from under him, but instead planted his fists, as he was still holding the kunai, in the ground when his back was to the Junin and raised his legs up, nailing Kakashi in the jaw with a heel, before jumping back to his feet, his back now turned to his opponent. Kakashi staggered backwards slightly from the powerful, if unfamiliar, taijutsu technique. Not a moment later Naruto had jumped up, flipping backwards to land right behind him. As he was nearing the ground and Kakashi, Naruto grabbed his neck between his arm and torso, and put his knee at his back, so that when he landed, he was holding his former sensei in a way that bent him backwards in a very uncomfortable manner. "Alright, Naruto," Kakashi said, his breathing slightly labored, "I think that's enough." Naruto was also breathing slightly more heavily than normal. "Are you sure, Kakashi-sensei?" he asked. "You can break this hold, after all." "True," Kakashi nodded as best he could, "but you forget that Godime-sama has yet to clear me for full combat status." Naruto nodded his assent and released his sensei, gently pushing him upright with his knee. Both ninjas gave each other a respectful bow. It was then that Sakura came to them. "Alright, are you both done now?" As the pair nodded at her, she gave them a wide smile, and punched them both in the solar plexus, causing them to double back with pain. "Now don't you ever freak me out like that again," she yelled at them. "Got it?" Through their painful breathlessness, both men nodded profusely at her. "Yes, ma'am." "But, really, Naruto," Kakashi spoke as they walked through the streets of Konoha to Sakura's house, "I never thought you'd learn to use weapon shadow clones. That technique requires a lot of preparation to be made beforehand." "How do you mean, Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura asked. "I was never able to study about the Kage Bunshin techniques since they were labeled Kinjutsu, forbidden techniques." "Mind if I explain, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto spoke, receiving a small nod. "Well, Sakura-chan, when you make a Kage Bunshin, you're really duplicating your body by infusing a temporary, manufactured shell with some of your chakra. In order to make a Kage Bunshin of an object, it has to be infused with chakra beforehand. Now, usually this means that the weapon you intend to duplicate has to contain seals that hold enough chakra to be used for bunshins. Oh, so you need to prepare special weapons for use with Kage Bunshin jutsus in advance." "Exactly, but there are some techniques, like the Bokuso Senbon or the Konoha Shuriken, leaf shuriken, that use chakra to turn normally harmless objects into weapons. When I used the Bokuso Senbon, I used more chakra than was necessary on the grass, so that when I used the Senbon Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, I already had enough chakra in the grass to make shadow clones of it." "That," Sakura muttered as they turned into her house's street, "that's incredible. How could you get so good in only 2.5 years? Putting that precise amount of chakra into the grass is something that requires very good chakra control." "Well, first off, thanks for the compliment," he grinned at her, "and second, during those 2.5 years, I was training every single bit of myself. Chakra control was one of the things I had to work hardest on to get to what Ero Sennin, who is a freaking slave driver, by the way, could call satisfactory." "Right," Kakashi said, as they stood in front of Sakura's house. "Well, I'm going to go home now, since I haven't showered since I got started on the road back here. Oh, one last thing, Naruto, the Chunin exams are starting in a week and a half, so I'd suggest you start getting prepared for it as soon as you can." "Alright, Kakashi-sensei," he said, grinning, "will do." With a wink, Kakashi jumped off and in the direction of his house. Sakura opened the door and walked in, Naruto following right behind her, closing the door behind him. "Sakura-chan." "Yeah," she said as she opened the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of juice, which she set on the table. "Look, I'm sorry about earlier," he said, coming behind her and wrapping his hands around her waist. "I didn't intend to freak you out like I did, it's just that I've been itching to show off how much I've improved. Especially to Kakashi-sensei. He could feel her chest move as she sighed. I know, Naruto, she said, turning around and looking him in the eyes, but I just wish you'd warn me before you do stuff like that. I'll try, next time. He kissed her on the forehead, causing her to flush, but I can make no promises. Sakura giggled. Never thought I'd hear you say that. Now, let's get something to drink. Pretty amazing, isn't he? A white-haired man called out to Kakashi as he went to open his apartment door. True, Kakashi called back to the man standing beside his door. He has progressed much faster and farther than I would have believed if I hadn't fought him. You've barely caught a shred of his true improvement, and you say that? Jiraiya scoffed. Watch him carefully in the Chunin exams, Kakashi, you'll be stunned. He seemed to consider his words before a smirk rose to his lips, and maybe not. After all, how can you judge a ninja's skills when you put him against people below his level, against simple genin? But, then, the Junin spoke, this year's exam isn't going to be like its predecessors, will it? The frog hermit nodded. The rock are sending genin for the exam for the first time since the war. Do you think they'll try something along the same vein as what the Sand and Sound did 3 years ago? Probably, especially since Naruto is taking this exam. Naruto. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Well, he might have raised the other also, but you couldn't really tell. What does he have to do with any of this? Kakashi raised an eyebrow himself. You mean you don't know? Know about what? Jiraiya chuckled. I'm not sure I can tell you, Kakashi. It's sort of a village secret. Stop fooling around, Jiraiya-sama, Kakashi said, an infinitesimally small bit of frustration leaking through his mask. What does Naruto taking part in the exam have anything to do with the rock and whatever they may or may not do? Very well, the frog hermit said. Well, it starts with the fact that in the wars, the Yondaime had earned himself many enemies, especially in the rock. Now the Yondaime is connected to this too. He was going to ask what his former sensei had to do with any of this, but Jiraiya had already continued. Very few people know this, you not being among them, but the Yondaime had a child. A child that, if left alone and unprotected, would have been forced to live in the constant shade of danger. When the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked Konoha, and it became clear to the Yondaime that he would have to seal the demon away, a jutsu that would cost him his life, he decided to seal it within that child, within his own child, so that he would be safe from the people seeking revenge against him. Within his own child. Could it be? On the couch in the living room of the Haruno household, Naruto sneezed. Are you feeling okay, Naruto? The pink-haired Kunoichi asked, her head resting on his shoulder. Yeah, he said, you know me, I almost never get sick. Probably an after effect of the Kyuubi. Probably, she replied. Say, do you want to see what else there is in that box of yours? Why? He asked with a smirk. Do you? Maib, she said with a smirk of her own. Then, Maib, I'll bring it so we can see. He walked to the closet where Sakura let him put his boxes and bag, and brought back the wooden box and the keys. After setting the box in front of the couch, he unlocked it and opened it. Sitting down between the couch and the box, he lifted the case that held the sphere out of the box, set it aside gently, and slid open one of the doors. The first thing he saw in the box was a booklet, similar to one of those instruction manuals that came along with most objects of at least semi-sophisticated machinery, like alarm clocks or ovens and the like. He pulled it out and opened it to the first page, which appeared to have been attached to the others hastily. Sakura read it over his shoulder. Son, within this box are most of my earthly possessions, she read, and within the pages of this booklet are the descriptions of the items and the way they came to my possession. I am sorry if you believed the Uzumaki had riches far greater or more abundant than this, but I hope you will still accept these gifts I left you with grace. Naruto handed the booklet to Sakura. Here, I'll let you hang on to this. He reached into the box and picked up what looked to be a small curved katana in its sheath. But, indeed, the blade appeared too small for it to be considered a katana, with what he estimated to be just above a foot in length, not including the 6-inch handle. Straining his memory slightly, he remembered encountering some samurai in the outskirts of Earth Country. They were carrying swords of a similar length along with their katana, which they called wakizashi. Sakura-chan, he said, can you see if you can find what the booklet says about this? He admired the sleek, clean design of the sheath and handle. Both appeared to be made of some sort of metal that looked to be light, yet durable. It was also black as the darkest shadow in the night. The handle of the weapon was full of small bumps and ridges, probably to allow for better grip. Slowly he pulled the sword from the sheath. The blade was made out of the same black metal as the handle and sheath. Naruto surveyed the edge of the blade, seeing that it seemed sharper than anything else he'd ever seen. Here, found it, Sakura spoke, Shoshi, also called Midnight or Blade of the Four Wounds. Before it came into my possession, this sword belonged to one of the elite samurai that were employed by the Earth Country during the wars. The man, Sesumaru, was the leader of a force meant to intercept one of our assassination groups before it was able to reach its target, one of Earth's most powerful generals. I was the leader of the assassination group, and the two of us clashed in one of the most memorable and challenging battles in my memory. Sesumaru handled his blade with a skill unmatched by any samurai I have ever encountered both prior to that day and after it. We battled for hours, continuing even long after my group had killed his soldiers. I asked him why he kept fighting when it was clear that he had lost the battle. His answer to me was one that I have held in my heart ever since. When I came into my master's service, I swore to him that I will do anything in my power to protect him, even at the cost of my own life. I don't break my promises, nor do I go back on my word. That is my Bushido, my way of the warrior. Sakura smiled. Sounds like someone I know. She continued reading. When the battle was concluded, and he lay on the ground, dying, he gave me his sword, after he made me promise never to use it on people from Earth Country. That was, however, only my promise alone, and I am sure that whosoever receives this sword can wield it against any foe, Earth or otherwise, without fear to break the oath. This sword is special in two elements that separate it from any other sword I have come across. The first element is the metal that composes it. Midnight was forged from a very rare metal, called kurotetsu. In its raw form, the ore glints like black diamonds, and reflects light extensively. However, when worked like steel to manufacture weapons or armor, the resulting metal stops reflecting light almost entirely. Kurotetsu also has the trait of incredible lightness of weight combined with hardness and durability, which made it one of my favorite weapons. The second element is that within the sheath of Shoshi there is a small shard of steel that was engraved with a special seal that allows the wielder to mold chakra into it and extend the blade up to a maximum length of 70 centimeters, the size of a full katana. The chakra is then held by the seal in a continuous loop within the sword, keeping the blade at the length the wielder designated. In order to revert the blade's length back to normal, chakra must be molded into the sheath a second time. It should be noted that the durability and hardness of the blade do not decrease, and that its weight retains the same proportion to its length as in its wakizashi form. Wow! Naruto said with obvious awe, what an amazing story behind this weapon. And it sounds like this Shoshi is pretty amazing too. Do you want to see if you can make it change its length? Naruto nodded and stood up. Holding the sword in one hand in front of him, he started to mold the chakra into his hand, and tried to push it into the sheath. Nothing happened. He tried again, and got the same result. I can't seem to make it work, Sakura-chan. Do you have any idea why? Sakura took a bit to ponder that. Well, the booklet says that you're supposed to mold the chakra into the seal, so maybe you're just missing it and molding it to some place that is only that black metal, and not the seal. Naruto frowned. How the hell am I supposed to find the place where the seal is? He tried looking at the sheath to see if there was any sort of indication for the seal's location. Nothing. Maybe there is a sign, but it's too small to see with the eye. Remembering a technique he learned in a Medi Nin's place in Thunder Country, he started molding chakra into his eyes. His intent was to enhance his sight in the same manner as a microscope, if a fair bit less effectively, but the result was something entirely different. All of a sudden, everything looked different, the world seemed to be colored differently than before. Surreally differently. He looked at the sword he was holding. A dull gray was flowing within its entire outline, except for one small bit, 2 inches from the blade, within the sheath, where white color was moving in the shape of an infinity sign placed within a circle. He looked down at his hands and arms to see that they seemed painted a moving, shifting blue. Every few seconds there would be a space between the flows of blue, and he could see moving, flowing red. Sakura-chan, this is really bizarre, he said, turning around to face her. What's making everything look so weird? Sakura had no idea what he was talking about, but when he turned to face her, she received a huge shock. Naruto, your eyes. His eyes weren't like normal, vibrant blue irises surrounding a pupil and surrounded by white. Instead, the entire eye was blue. A deep, deep blue that seemed to almost pull her in, before she shook her head out of it. There wasn't a single spot on the eye that wasn't blue, but the most incredible thing about them was that the color seemed to flow and flicker about inside the eyes and glow from them, even sending out small sparks. It was almost as if his eyes were set on fire, burning with a blue flame. A blue flame. The Aohigan. Naruto, she spoke, can you describe for me exactly what you're seeing? I guess so, he replied. Well, everything is colored weird, and it's not like a normal color, either. It looks like it's flowing, like some sort of liquid. When I look at myself I see a deep blue, and every so often, a bit of red. When I look at you, I also see blue, but it isn't as deep as mine, and there's no red. When I look at the sword, I see gray, and there's a white shape in the sheath. Sakura processed all that information. Okay, Naruto, I want you to try molding your chakra into the blade again, and this time aim for that white shape. Naruto nodded and did as instructed. When he pushed his chakra into the seal, he could actually see the chakra moving into it, even though it wasn't nearly enough to be normally visible. The chakra's color was bright blue, and he could see it flow into the symbol, changing its color to match the same blue of the chakra. The blade of the sword started to change, its length increasing to more than twice what it was a moment ago, and its color the same blue as the symbol as in the chakra he had pushed was. Sakura-chan, he mumbled, I think I'm seeing chakra flows. I think that this is the Aohigan. Yes, Naruto, I think so too. She said, now try pulling the chakra you have gathered in your eyes away from them. She saw him concentrating, and saw the blue seep away from his eyes, until the only blue in them was his irises. Wow, it worked, Naruto exclaimed, that was so cool. Sakura chuckled at her boyfriend's demeanor, baka. You mean that Naruto is, that Izarashi-sensei's child? Jiraiya nodded. Why did you think his name is Uzumaki? And with how he looks, I didn't think it would have been so difficult to realize, especially for you, who was taught by Arashi-kun and taught Naruto. Didn't you ever suspect it? Of course I suspected it, Jiraiya-sama, Kakashi said, a hint of anger in his tone, but there was never any proof of it. The fact that he was named Uzumaki, well, there was always this rumor going around Konoha that the Sandaime gave Naruto the same last name as Arashi-sensei had because he felt that since sealing the Kyuubi in Naruto was his last action for Konoha, Naruto was part of his legacy. And the irony of it is that it isn't completely wrong. The white-haired Sannin said, Naruto wasn't as part of Arashi-kun's legacy. And there are a lot of people that will want him dead because of it. That remark was followed by a dead silence. So, what is Godime-sama planning to do about this? Well, we are going to need someone to watch Naruto's back. If the Rock decide to make a move on him during the Chunin exam, we'll need someone to be there to help him. Do you have anyone you want to recommend for the job? Kakashi didn't hesitate for a second. I'll do it. Are you sure, Kakashi? If you go to help him when it isn't necessary, you'll be running the risk of getting him disqualified. I know, and I'm sure. Kakashi's eye glinted with determination. if Naruto is Arashi-sensei's kid, it has to be me watching his back. I wouldn't trust anyone else to do the job right. Maybe you and Godime-sama, but no one else. Good. Jiraiya said, holding out his hand, which the silver-haired Junin shook. Then I know the perfect way for you to be able to do that. Night had fallen on Konoha a few hours ago, but the two teenage ninjas taking residence at the Haruno household were only now getting to sleep. After the whole deal with Midnight and the Aohigan, they continued to rifle through the box for just a bit longer, finding a couple of interesting tools. The first was a quartet of identical green kunai. The booklet said that they were an alarm system used in outdoor locations. Planting the kunai in the ground in any quadrangular pattern creates a sort of invisible cage with 4 walls and a roof at 15 feet in the air. When something enters the cage, an alarm sounds off, that can only be heard within the cage. This accomplishes the goal of waking up anyone sleeping within the cage, without revealing its location to anyone outside it. The second were 5 triple-prong kunai that the booklet said had a jutsu on them that let the yondaime know when it was being thrown. Another jutsu had been placed on the kunai beforehand also, one that allowed the yondaime to use the Hiraishin no jutsu, Flying Thunder God, to come to the kunai's location immediately. Upon closer inspection using the Aohigan intentionally, this time Naruto discovered a patch of blue chakra swirling in the gray chakra of the kunai. Somehow, this must have been the anchor his father used to teleport himself to the kunai's location, although he wasn't sure how it was done, or how he could duplicate the effect. After that, Naruto placed the kunai and Midnight back inside the box, closed the sliding door and put the sphere's case back inside, before locking the box and putting it back in the closet. They then ate dinner, and showered, separately, mind you. Now Sakura was lying in her queen-sized bed, which she had gotten a year and a half ago, when her parents finally agreed to enlarge her room. She spent 2 weeks sleeping on the living room couch while her room was being remodeled, but it was worth it. Looking out the window at the stars, Sakura thought back to everything that happened in just the last 48 hours. First, she gets a note from Naruto to meet him at Team 7's old training ground, where they talked and she first got to appreciate how incredible he really was. After that, she gets a visit from Ino, who tells her that she, Sakura, has a thing for Naruto. A meditation session later, she realized Ino was right, and she did have a thing for Naruto. Not 5 minutes afterwards, Naruto himself comes to her house and asks to spend the night. They discover that the yondaime is his father, and then she discovers that Naruto is in love with her, and both of them discover that she loves him too. The next day she goes to Naruto's house, which incidentally, is where she and Naruto met the yondaime in the sphere, and Naruto shows off some incredible skills against Kakashi, after which they come back to her house, find a black, length-shifting sword, Naruto's Aohigan and 2 sets of kunai his father used. It all seemed too much to have happened in just 2 days. Man, I hope things slow down a bit soon. Sakura-chan, Naruto said, tentatively poking his head into the room. Yeah, well, I just wanted to tell you that I'm done with the shower. I'm going to crash down on the couch in the living room. Good night. Good night, Naruto, she said, before an idea popped into her head. Oh, Naruto, hold on. Naruto poked his head into the room again. You wanted something, Sakura-chan. Yeah, Naruto, I did, she said, a sly smirk rising to her lips. I wanted to ask you if you wanted to spend the night here, instead of on the couch downstairs. What do you mean, like, I'll sleep here on the floor? Sakura groaned. No, here, in my bed, with me. What? Naruto was certain he hadn't heard correctly. Nothing perverted, baka, just sleep. She told him, cuddling at most. Are you sure about this, Sakura-chan? Yes, I'm sure. Now get in, will ya? Chuckling, Naruto got into the bed beside Sakura. He wasn't there for 5 seconds before Sakura had turned his chest into her personal pillow, and he reflexively wrapped his arm around her waist, though how such a reflex could be created from less than a day of being an actual couple, he didn't know. So, tomorrow, do you want to start moving things into your new house? No, he said, I don't think I'll be moving there anytime soon. Why? She asked. Don't you want to get settled into your new home? Not yet. I'm comfortable right where I am. Good, because I'm comfortable here too. Naruto smiled and bent his head to kiss her forehead. She followed up by moving up so that their faces were level and only inches apart. Good night, Naruto, she said, kissing his lips softly. He smirked into the kiss, I'll say. He was answered by an exasperated chuckle. Good night, Sakura-chan. Nope, Naruto was definitely not planning to move into his house tomorrow, or until Sakura's parents come back, for that matter. He wanted to spend as much of his time with her as he could. And besides, that house wasn't his home. Because home is where your heart is, and as cheesy as it sounded, his heart is where Sakura is. Author's notes. Okay, this is going to be one long ass AN, so I won't blame you if you don't read it all, or any of it. I'll try to keep it organized, though, so those of you who are interested and, frankly, bored enough can read it without too much brain damage. 1 chapter length. Holy freaking crap on a stick, this chapter was long. 19 pages in MS Word, times New Roman size 12, if you must know, not including the AN and the opening notes. I don't think there will be a lot more chapters like this, but I don't determine chapter size in advance. 2 Aohigan. Well, how'd you like it? I, personally, have never seen something like it, and I think it requires an explanation, because my view of chakra is a bit different from canon. You see, in my Naruto verse, everything has chakra, and it is always there, unlike canon Naruto, where chakra is made from combining spiritual energy with physical energy, stamina, and has to be generated proactively by the ninja or whoever. If you play nice, I might tell you in the next chapter about the difference between what the Byakugan lets you see and what the Aohigan lets you see. If you're really good, I might even let Arashi-kun do the explaining. 3. The battle. Did I manage to write the Kakashi-Naruto fight scene well? I really hope so, but let's talk a bit about it. First off, the 2 techniques I used in the Kakashi fight scene were originals of mine. Well, the Senbon Cage Bunshin isn't completely original, since there is a Shuriken Cage Bunshin Jutsu in canon, but still, either way, the Bokuso Senbon Jutsu is completely my creation, as is the Konoha Shuriken Jutsu I mentioned afterwards. Back to the battle, there was this one move of Naruto's that I really hope I managed to describe satisfactorily, the handstand heel kick he gave Kakashi in the jaw. Did I manage to pull it off, or did it just horribly? 4. Dialogue. I was writing this chapter while I was re-watching some of the anime, and so some bits of the dialogues in this one sound a bit like they were translated from Japanese into English. An example would be when Tsunade says, "So that's what happened." A phrase that is very similar in meaning to the Japanese, "su dezu ka." I'm sorry if this offended or annoyed any of you, but the writing flows however it wants, and I don't try to control it too much. 5. Downright cheesiness. Okay, I admit it, I made Naruto and Sakura too cute. But I freaking like it, so you're gonna just have to deal. Anyway, I think I made it pretty clear that the reason things are going so fast isn't clear to either of them, but they aren't complaining. Well, Sakura did, a bit, at the end, but once she stops reflecting and starts living, I doubt she'll keep complaining. Besides, after noticing some behavioral patterns with my attached friends, I can safely say that couples who are in love are, in fact, that sticky and cheesy and cavity-inducingly sweet. 6. Uber Maki Naruto. Okay, I think I dug myself into a bit of a hole with this before, but I'll try my best to dig myself back up. I don't think I made Naruto Uber in this fic. 2. Uber. A character means to make it amazingly and illogically powerful. Now you may think that Naruto, beating Kakashi right there constitutes that, but Kakashi isn't at his full strength at the moment. Tsunade hadn't cleared him for full combat status, after all wasn't using his Sharingan, and wasn't expecting Naruto to be as good as he was, Not to mention the fact that if he wanted, he could have broken the submission hold Naruto held him in, so there was no sure victor in that battle. Frankly, the reason my Naruto is more powerful than canon Naruto is that I can't for a second believe that all he got from 2.5 years of training was a one-handed Rasengan, the Udama Rasengan, some sort of Kinjutsu, a perverted technique, up to 4 tails enraged Kyuubi form, some strength, stamina, chakra and the ability to dispel minor genjutsu. Can't believe that for a single second. So I gave him more power, more jutsus, and more than the loaf of a brain he still seemed to display on the Rescue Gaara mission. So sue me.